Welcome back to Chow Time Pods. Your host, Red. Got a video today from Alexander Grace.
Conceal the under eyes because the only bags that matter are the designer ones he's going to buy us for Christmas. Now we move on to blush because we like to look more flushed than a man will ever be able to make us. If you know what I'm saying. Now for eyeshadows, I like to go for browns to remind him that he will be living in the woods if he doesn't give me his credit card. And a little bit of shimmer to remind them that I am the light of their life. For eyeliner, remember that
These regular, degular women with all this makeup think they qualify for top-tier princess treatment.
men are fragile, so we have to keep it sharp enough to cut them. Now we overline our lips so they know we are always ready to suck their blood. Then girls, don't forget to get out your best assets, your middle fingers.
You know, years ago, I would have seen that clip and my response would have been, that individual woman is so lost. But now my response is that femininity is in crisis. That's actually very different. So the question is, why have I changed? And it's not just me. I bet you've changed too. But because
I have. I've seen Alex change over the years because I've been covering Alex for about 3 years myself because I've been doing this for 3.5 years or so. And I've changed. I used to be very staunch family, very this. Now I'm like, I understand. I'm even in the boat of maybe I don't want family myself, but I want family. You know, like there's so much nuance and into life that you learn.
journey has been in public, it's impossible to hide from. It's no secret that I've changed my views, and what you see on the channel today is very different from what I started with. So what happened? Recently, one of the members of my Patreon community asked me if initially, when I saw the darker implications of all of this stuff, I wanted to deny it. If I just didn't want it to be.
I think that's what it was for Alex. He just was like, no, there's no way women are this evil.
Be true. And so I kept my head buried in the sand in a state of denial until a certain threshold was met when I couldn't do that anymore. And essentially, I think, yeah, that's true. That's right. That's what happened. And he asked me, well, what was the threshold? What was it that caused the dam to finally break? And could I please make that a topic of a video? And I said, yes. So that's what this video is. So what was my threshold? Well, the short answer is that my world turned inside out. You see, over the years, running men's groups and doing hundreds, maybe thousands of private consultations with men, I heard so many different stories of what it was like to be in a relationship with an abusive woman. And what I realized is that the stories were all pretty similar. Not to minimize the unique suffering that the men went through, women turned out to not be some mysterious and unknowable force. They're actually pretty basic and predictable. It turns out mapping toxic femininity was a very simple and straightforward task. After hearing enough stories, I could predict with basically 100% accuracy what was going to happen next inside these relationships.
Me and you both, Alex, I always say this. I don't want to be right. I really don't. But I'm hardly ever wrong. Right? That's the problem I have. The same with Alex. I've seen it. I've seen so many of it. I've experienced it enough. Talked with enough men. Seen it enough times. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna happen. Everybody says, no, you're just being mean. You're just being this and that. But then what turns out is I'm almost always right.
It's like, oh, okay, she said that. She's behaving like this. I bet she does this next. I bet she employs this tactic and this strategy. It's honestly not difficult. If you had my job, I bet you'd be able to do this too. It's basic pattern recognition. But because it was relatively easy, that made me suspicious. Why don't we hear about this? Why is nobody connecting the dots? So if I had to summarize what changed for me, it would be this. When I started the channel, I believed that the environment of our culture was fundamentally healthy. You know, the foundations were solid, society was good, but that the problem was the individuals inside the culture. Now, I think the complete opposite. I think that the instincts of individual humans are fundamentally pretty healthy. The problem is the environment. Let me tell you a story to demonstrate what I mean.
Look at me. Look at me. Are you serious right now? You don't get off the PS5 right now, I'm breaking up with you. That's right. That's right.
Years ago, I was doing a consultation with a man and he was having a lot of arguments with his girlfriend. So we spent the better part of an hour going through it all. Me coaching him about communication techniques, female emotions, conflict resolution, stuff that I am pretty good at, and I thought that I was helping. But at some point, he played an audio recording of an argument that he had had with his girlfriend. And I still remember the feeling that I had listening to it, because as the recording started and went on, my stomach
This actually happened to me too. I told you guys about this way back in the day, like a few years ago, when my roommate, he recorded his girlfriend at the time of how she treated him and expected things from him, and he played that for me, and I was just like, oh, these women aren't just on the internet, they're here in real fucking life. Because I have never experienced a recording of that nature ever.
Dropped and I felt like shit. Listening to the exchange, the woman was awful, completely abusive. She was terrorizing this man. She was entirely dishonest and manipulative in her approach. But here's the important part, is that is not how he presented his relationship to me. He came to me with a list of things that he wanted to work on, but that list was written by her, essentially. It was a list of all of the criticisms that she made of him. But he obviously wasn't the problem. Listening to the audio recording, he was polite, he was responsive, he was attentive, he was very sincere, while she, on the other hand, thwarted any attempt that he made to push for reconciliation or resolution, just dripping with manipulative toxicity. And as I listened to the argument unfold, I realized that he'd come to me for help, but he quite literally did not have the words to actually describe what was being done to him. He didn't know really what it was that he was going through. He had no frame of reference because this culture has given men zero education on how to spot female abuse. It was edge of the map territory. His mind couldn't articulate what it was that he was going through because he had no frame of reference. And so he presented himself as though he was the problem, and I believe...
what else would we think? We get told that we're the problem all the time. It's not by just women, right? Men tell us we're the problem too, so I can see a lot of men internalizing that and just thinking they suck.
Believed him. I just went along with it. And I can't tell you how sick it makes you feel, not just that the man has been through this kind of abuse, but he is abusing himself because of the programming that she has put into his mind. But then this guy comes to you seeking help, and then I end up perpetuating her abuse on.
I see that. I could see where Alex is. It's like, man, I'm the worst one because I am the guy that is just continuing it and pretending like pretty much gaslighting this guy. I get it, Alex.
By buying into this frame. The shame is massive. It's really overwhelming. But I'm so glad that it happened, because I don't think it was until that moment that I fully began to realize how deeply conditioned my responses were. I began to see that my own judgment on this stuff was compromised. And I didn't get it all right away. This stuff, it takes time. But I became deeply suspicious of my own conclusions and my own worldview. And that's just one story, and it demonstrates the point. There were, many other like minor versions, I guess, of this. But I
watched this content and I was just like, I enjoy the content. Is it really real life? I don't think so. And then I go out there, dated, met women, met a lot of women in the corn industry, the sex industry. And it's so apparent to me. Even met degular women. Yeah, the internet isn't that wrong. Isn't that far off from what is truly out there. At least when it comes to the craziness that women bring.
I doubted myself big time, and I used that doubt as motivation to go back to first principles, to actually re-examine all of this stuff from the ground up, to try and find out what the truth was before the conditioning. I saw that I had been too readily eager to just accept things at face value. You know, when feminists said that they're fighting for justice and fairness and equality, I believed them. And I didn't even really think that there was anything wrong with feminism as a framework in theory. I just thought that individual feminists were failing to live up to their own framework. But I thought that we were fundamentally on the same team. They want what's best for women. I love women. I want everybody to thrive and cooperate. And so I thought that if I was just able to correct their ignorance and point out their inconsistencies, then they would see where they were being illogical and they could correct course. Surely, I thought in my youthful naivety, once they see their hypocrisy, they will be embarrassed. And
this is what women do with us when it comes to dating. They project ourselves into what they want, right? This is exactly what Alex has done. You're using our logic and our understanding of the world and how we see the world as men, but women don't see it that way. That's the crazy part.
they'll want to address this.
If companies can pay women less, why don't they hire all women?
Well, that's a whole nother story.
Really?
I understand your argument, and I understand that you're angry.
I'm not angry.
I can hear it in your voice.
I'm not
Listen to your
angry.
voice.
I'm hearing my voice and I sound pretty calm.
You have now shifted the quality of your voice, and I thank you for that.
Okay.
And you've just given me a condescending look, and that's another reason why we need feminism. And
Because you're being condescending to him.
now I'm done, and thank you so much.
Here's the thing. There is a limit to how long you can go and extend to people the benefit of the doubt. There's a limit for how long you can continue to believe that people want to be logical. They want to be consistent and evidence-based and acting in good faith. It's just that they're falling short in their execution. You know, we share the same underlying fundamental commitment to fairness. You know, we're on the same team ultimately. It's just hard to live up to these ideals, or there's some mistakes being made, some ignorance that's affecting the outcome. There's a limit as to how long you can believe that to be true before the doubts get too large. You see that no progress is being made. No amount of education seems to be impacting this. You know, the ignorance seems to be actively celebrated rather than being corrected. And you
Like willful ignorance.
start to doubt whether or not the map that you have of the world accurately represents the reality of life.
Women would not have to pay taxes. No, they wouldn't. You're a woman. No taxes for you. Everything is a tax write-off for you. Next, we are going to stop funding male medical research. No more of it. From now on, we are only doing studies and research for women on women's health only. From here on out, thank you. And finally, every man is guilty until proven innocent.
At some point, it just clicked that this can't be just an innocent mistake. Feminist groups have been repeatedly exposed for manipulating the statistics on domestic violence, cherry picking and hiding the data to make it seem like intimate partner violence is just a male issue, completely ignoring the fact that there are plenty of female abusers and lots of male victims. You think, well, how can that be ignorance? How can that be a mistake? They're not accidentally misreading the data. They are consciously manipulating it and then presenting it with this narrative to the public. They are lying. That can't possibly be an accident, obviously. The awful way that women talk about men on social media and in real life, the entitlement, the lack of accountability, the unacknowledged privilege. When you bring black and white evidence to feminists, showing them the damage that they are doing, highlighting the suffering of men, and instead of changing course, their response is to shrug. How do you make sense of that?
Why isn't paternity fraud illegal? It's estimated 6% of men are fathering children that are not theirs,
There should be consequences for that.
but there aren't.
Okay.
And that's my point, is you guys don't care about equality. You want freedom at the expense of men.
Okay, sure. Next.
Do you think that
I mean, did she just admit it in a sense right there?
men should have the right to opt out of fatherhood, since women have the right to opt out of motherhood?
No.
eventually, if you're being intellectually honest and your commitment is to discovering the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it means
That's why I do like Pearl. Like I don't hate on her at all.
that you have to change your perspective, your values, admit that you were wrong. At some point, if you're being honest, you need to consider the possibility that the consequences, like the place that we have ended up as a society, that wasn't an accident. That was the intended destination. These last few generations of women with their feminism, they weren't aiming for equality and missing the target. Women weren't accidentally abusing men in their relationships. This is not a mistake. This was the goal. But if that's the case, then holy shit, that means fundamentally we're not on the same team. If we believe them when they say these words, then men truly are the enemy. And that means that we're at war. Cooperation was never the goal. Power is. And it's pretty dark to contemplate that. But guess what? That model, that better explains the world that we're living in than the one that I was previously working off. When I said before that I've shifted from believing that the environment was healthy with some problems with individuals to now believing that individuals are fundamentally healthy in their instincts, but the environment is wrong. What I'm talking about is that this ideology of feminism is designed to turn us against each other. There's no way that evolution actually shaped men and women to be in conflict with each other. That makes zero sense. We are obviously designed for cooperation. And if there is conflict between the genders, then the culprit has to be ideology. And so if you want to know what my threshold was when I started to doubt the fundamental foundations of our culture, it was when I stopped labeling dysfunction and conflict as mistakes or aberrations, and instead I connected the dots and I considered them as part of a whole. And when I did that, they formed an extremely clear pattern. And that's when the world flipped for me. It turned inside out. No, it's not sick individuals inside a healthy environment. No, the environment itself is sick. If there are sick individuals, it's because the environment made them so. Babies are innocent. You'll find no original sin arguments from me, but something is happening between birth and adulthood that is turning this whole thing toxic. And as long as we keep living inside this environment and we don't make changes, then individuals are going to continue to get sick. It's going to affect men, and crucially, it's also going to affect women.
Nobody's talking about how the hookup culture is literally the most toxic place there is. So this is me when I was deep in this culture, thought that this is what you're supposed to do in college and this is what's fun. I would literally cry because I was so depressed. I was addicted to lust, addicted to literally getting my fulfillment from using guys. But then would go home and literally bawl my eyes out every single time. It is so toxic, but so many people are saying that this is like normal and this is like what this society, culture, whatever, that is what we do. And it is literally so empty. Like I can't. I really can't.
Feminists don't care about the best interests of women. Feminism has destroyed femininity. And I love women too much to surrender this culture to feminism. It is time for your reign of terror to end. The suffering that you have inflicted on innocent people is unforgivable. You need to beg for...
You know, women are the victims of feminism too. I think we don't realize that because they are the feminists themselves, but the ideology has screwed women over.
Forgiveness, because this whole situation is disgusting. Like this woman said, this hookup culture, it's toxic, it's disgusting. I've always found hookup culture disgusting, even when I was a young, horny kid. But in my youth, I was trying to fit in. And so given that's what everybody was doing, I suppressed my disgust response. And that was a big mistake. And I don't want men to be making the same mistake that I have made. And that's why I created my special audio lecture series on disgust. If we're going to make changes in the culture, it begins with taking sovereignty over our own emotional responses. Your disgust is not something that you should be ashamed of. It is something that you should be proud of. You should use your disgust as a guide. All 6 lectures are available on Patreon for purchase for $10. But it also comes with Patreon membership, so you can listen to them for free, actually. You just sign up to my Patreon free 7-day trial. And while you're over there, you can also watch part 2 of this video.
Shout outs to Alex. You know, I love that he changed. I've seen the change. We have discussed comments about me covering Alex's videos and how much he has changed. People are like, he's gotten more red pill. Yeah, he's learned the truth. When everybody has a construct of how the world works in their head, sometimes that construct gets destroyed. And sometimes you got to rebuild it back up. Don't be ashamed that you have to rebuild it, because sometimes what you think may not be it. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that. And catch you guys next time. Ciao.